And hello YouTube, this is Thomas Judge back once again with another short YouTube reading guide series. Today is the first of 3 videos walking through the correct reading order of the Thunderbolts by Marvel Comics. To create this reading guide I have read the 339 comic issues that comprise the entire Thunderbolts run, including all the essential spin-offs and all the tie-ins, and I've used that knowledge to build the internet's most detailed reading map for this particular corner of superhero comics. During the series, I'll use terms like volume with a big or small V, or I might refer to different types of comic readers as type P or type J. That can seem a bit overwhelming, and if you need more guidance on what all these terms mean, please check out the introductory videos for one of my larger reading guide series, such as the one I did for the DC New 52, almost 4,000 issues, or the one I did for the Top Cow Artifactiverse, almost 1,000 issues. I'll link to both of these in the description below, but I'm not going to go over that old ground here because this is a relatively short guide and I don't want to go over old ground unnecessarily. So to start with, who are the Thunderbolts? The Thunderbolts are a Marvel superhero team with an unusual and multi-layered origin. They first debuted in Incredible Hulk 449, the issue you can see here, at a time when the Avengers no longer existed in the normal Marvel universe, or what is known as the Marvel 616 universe. I'll try my best to keep spoilers out of this reading order, but due to the inherent concept of the Thunderbolts and their rotating lineup and position in the Marvel universe, that might be a little bit tough, so consider yourself warned. There may be some small spoilers in the videos ahead. Anyway, the Thunderbolts have been around since 1997, meaning they've been around for almost 20 years, which is amazing going for a series originally planned for only 12 issues originally. In this time, it's undergone many renumberings, many changes in lineup, changes in title, and then changes back again, and it's even spun out several new lines that it has then reabsorbed. Don't worry if this sounds complicated, that's because it is. And don't worry, because I'm here to talk you through it all by going through all this with you, one trade paperback collection at a time. So with no further ado, here, ladies and gentlemen, is the Ultimate Marvel Thunderbolts reading guide. You can see it's zoomed out a fair bit so you can see the entire guide, and you'll see here that I'm doing this in my usual way, with a visual guide showing you the covers of each collected trade paperback in order and sequence, showing what relates to what sequentially. For this guide, I am also including little side panels like the ones you can see here. These indicate Marvel Universe events that are happening at the same time that will impact on the series we're looking at. This doesn't mean that you need to read these events, although you can if you want to, of course, but it does mean that you will need some understanding of them to understand the Thunderbolts. I'll talk about each one of these events when we get to it, and give you an idea of whether you need to read it, or whether a quick skim of the Wikipedia summary will clue you in enough. Now, those of you who watch my other reading guides know I take a pretty relaxed view of continuity in the larger sense. I'm what I define in my other videos as a Type J reader. So the fact that I'll be referencing these events means they're pretty critical to know about, and it's important to mention them. But with that out of the way, let's go right to the top of the map, and let's start here. This first circle, the picture you can see here with the green lighting in the background, this represents the beginning of the first volume of the Big V, or what most people would call a series, of the Thunderbolts. This collection here, the one with the green lighting, that is Thunderbolts Classic Volume 1. That's what it's called if you're going to order it off Amazon or from an online retailer of some kind. That's the cover that it has. Now I'm going to show you the issues it contains and their reading order, which is here. It contains Hulk issue 449. Then it has Thunderbolts issue 1 and 2. Then it contains Spider-Man Team Up 7. Then Thunderbolts issue 3, Thunderbolts -1, then Thunderbolts issues 4 and 5, and then Annual 97. The reason I show you these breakdowns is in case you're reading them as single issues or reading them on Marvel Unlimited, which is obviously a much cheaper and accessible way of doing it. Back to the map here, you'll see that that is the first circle we have, and that then loops into the next one, which has got the character here looking over the planet with the Thunderbolts in the background. Now this is the cover for Thunderbolts Classic Volume 2, which is the second collection of the Thunderbolts. Now with that being the cover, I'm now going to show you the issues inside it, which are here. It includes issues 6 to 9 of Thunderbolts, and then an issue of Heroes for Hire, issue 7, and then Thunderbolts issue 10 to 14. If we jump back to the map here, and we scroll down further, we'll see this kind of bright orange cover there. We'll put it in the center, and that is Thunderbolts Classic Volume 3. Again, that's what it's called, and if you're buying it online or buying it somewhere, that's what you type in. It has that cover, and I will now show you the issues contained in it. So we have issues Thunderbolts 15 to 22. Then we have Thunderbolts issue 0. It's important you read this after issue 22, otherwise it will contain spoilers. It also contains Avengers issue 12, which goes there after issue 0. And then a one-shot, which is Captain America and Citizen V Annual 1997. 1997, for those of you that don't know, was the year that all the Marvel annuals were team-up annuals and had 2 characters in them. So now we'll jump back to the map. And from here, we're going to scroll down and you will see this, which is this purple cover. Now, you can't see it too clearly here. I'm afraid it's a little bit blurry in the image that I got there. But this trade collection is actually called Hawkeye and the Thunderbolts Volume 1. That's really important to remember because all the issues in it are just called Thunderbolts. In fact, the issues in it are as follows. It's Thunderbolts issues 23 to 37, then the Thunderbolts annual for the year 2000, and then the Avengers annual for the year 2000. It's a linked story, so that's what you would need to read. However, whilst they're all called Thunderbolts inside it, the trade collection itself is called Hawkeye and the Thunderbolts Volume 1, and it's Volume 1 even though there's not an issue 1 in it. I know, it's confusing. I don't know why they went for a rename at this point, but they did. It just makes the branding a bit confusing. I'm just going to pull back for a second here, and the reason for that is that it is worth noting that these 4 collections we can see here comprise the recently released Thunderbolts Omnibus Volume 1. In fact, the first 3.5 of these trade paperback collections contain everything that's in that first omnibus. So that omnibus collects everything up to and including issue 33. So in other words, everything apart from the last few issues of the collection we just talked about, Hawkeye and the Thunderbolts Volume 1. You might be wondering why the omnibus ends at issue 33 rather than at least collecting the same issues as the entire 4th trade collection. Well, the reason for this is that it's an omnibus that, like many omnibuses, is centered on a particular creator, in this case Kurt Busiek. Fabian Nicieza replaced Busiek in issue 34, and hence the omnibus stops at issue 33. Anyway, let's go back to the map here. The next volume we need to look at continues right on from where Hawkeye and the Thunderbolts Volume 1 was. It's this issue here, which has got Hawkeye and Black Widow on the cover. Now, this is called Hawkeye and the Thunderbolts Volume 2. Remember, that's only the title of the trade collection. There was never a series of comics with that name, confusingly enough. So all the actual issues inside it are still just called Thunderbolts. I'm going to show you what those issues are now. It collects Thunderbolts issues 38 to 41, Avengers 31, Thunderbolts 42, Avengers 32, Thunderbolts 43, Avengers 33, Thunderbolts 44, Avengers 34, and Thunderbolts 45 to 50. That is the exact reading order, by the way. Now, the reason I'm showing you that is that if I do this, you'll note that the middle part of this collection, which is now highlighted in red, is actually collected as a standalone slimmer volume, which you can see the picture of here now, called the Nefaria Protocols, and is branded as an Avengers Thunderbolts crossover. It's a slimmer volume that only contains these issues in the middle and in that order. Anyway, let's step back out. We're back on the map here, and you'll see Hawkeye and the Thunderbolts Volume 2 with a very similar cover to the Nefaria Protocols. From there, we then go down to this circle here, which is the Uncollected era. Now, unfortunately, this is the long run of uncollected issues within this series. Everything else in the Thunderbolts is collected other than this. So I have to point out that these are only available as physical single issues, not even as trade paperback collections, let alone hardcovers or omnibuses. Now I'm going to show you the exact reading order of this uncollected era, and you can see it here. Firstly, you've got a miniseries, Citizen V and the V Battalion, that's 3 issues long. Then you have another miniseries, Citizen V and the V Battalion, The Everlasting, which is 4 issues long. You then have Thunderbolts issues 51 and 52. After issue 52, it's critical that you read a single issue called Thunderbolts Life Sentences. This one is not even on Marvel Unlimited, so tracking it down is going to be quite tough. After that, we then have Thunderbolts issues 53 to 75, and then an issue of Thunderbolts called From the Marvel Vault. Now, at the time of writing, I can confirm that a second Thunderbolts omnibus has been solicited. You can see volume 2 here. And this collects everything from issue 34, where the last omnibus left off, up to issue 63, and also includes all the other spin-offs, miniseries, and one-shots we've discussed. In other words, if you buy the 2 omnibuses, you will have every single thing in the map we've discussed up until now, except the last few uncollected issues. So if we go back to the map here, and I zoom out, we've got the circle with the top left corner with the green lightning. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trade paperback collections and a whole string of uncollected issues. And almost all of that is collected in just 2 omnibuses, apart from the uncollected issues, which are issues 64 to 64 to 75. So I'm showing a grab from a great video that introduces this omnibus. You've seen that, and the link is in the description below. Now, with that out of the way, we're going to go back to safer territory where the issues are again collected in trade paperbacks and hardcovers. That said, before we do that, I want to have a look at this little oddity here. So you'll notice this, to the right of the uncollected era is just one more collection. This is called Thunderbolts How to Lose and collects issues 76 to 81. Now, feel free to ignore reading this, but I'm just going to tell you what it is for completeness' sake. You see, despite a fair bit of critical acclaim, the book itself, Thunderbolts, was softly relaunched in March 2003, removing the entire cast and creative team and replacing it with a brand new set of characters and with a new writer called John Arcudi. However, the new direction for the series, which was as an underground fighting circuit that employed predominantly brand new and therefore unknown supervillain characters, was a commercial failure and it was cancelled after only 6 issues, so at issue 81. Of course, I read it, and whilst it's not bad, it's also not good. I had no interest in reading more of this. This arc and these characters will never ever get mentioned again, so feel free to ignore it if you find it hard to track these issues down. So with that out of the way, let's move all the way to the left and here. Now, this is a bit of a reset for the series, which is why I've doglegged it back a step all the way to the left side of the map. Because here we have these 6-issue limited miniseries called Avengers Thunderbolts, Best Intentions. This brings back the old team that we last saw in issue 75, and that's a bit of a relief, to be honest. Now, that is a self-contained 6-issue miniseries. After that, we then get a new series called New Thunderbolts. Now, you can see the cover for the first collection of New Thunderbolts here. It's called One Step Forward and collects issues 1 to 6. It's important to concentrate here. This series is a new series. It starts with issue 1 and it has a new name. That means that if you're looking for it on Marvel Unlimited, it's under N for New Thunderbolts, not under T for Thunderbolts. This is important to remember for reasons that are about to become very, very obvious. Now, the next collection is the one you can see here, which is called Modern Marvels. It collects issues 7 to 12. Continuing on down, what you have here is a collection which is called Right of Power, collecting issues 13 to 18 and issue 100. Wait, did I say it collected issue 100? I did. So where did this issue 100 come from? Well, let's take a minute to look at these in more detail. So I'm just going to scroll over here. As we've seen, soon after the completion of Avengers Thunderbolts in 2005, Marvel Comics launched their second series featuring the familiar Thunderbolts characters, calling it New Thunderbolts. These are the 3 volumes you can see here that we've just talked about. Now, the storyline in this series continues on from the events from Avengers Thunderbolts, as well as on from the events which are the fallout of Avengers Disassembled, although you do not need to read or know about the Disassembled event to read this. However, understandably, probably much like yourself, many fans were confused by this, and so Marvel wanted to make sure that people stuck with the series. Also, having an issue 100 always gives a bump in sales, like having an issue 1, for example, and so they decided to revert back to the original title and the legacy numbering. Legacy numbering is a fancy way of saying that it's the number of an issue if you count them up from the first ever issue. What this means is that with the combination of the 81 issues of the first series and the first 18 issues of this New Thunderbolts, you have 81 plus 18, which is 99, and then the series reverted to its original numbering with Thunderbolts 100. In other words, New Thunderbolts Volume 1 with a big V is actually folded into Thunderbolts Volume 1. So Thunderbolts as a series kind of swallows up and envelops the New Thunderbolts series as well. I know that's confusing, and I think one day I'll make a video that explains legacy numbering much better. In this particular instance, I think the reason they went from New Thunderbolts back to Thunderbolts is because fans were simply going into comic stores and looking at the new releases and going to T, and they couldn't see their Thunderbolts comics, so they assumed it didn't exist. Um, and Marvel wanted to make sure that fans of the Thunderbolts were able to carry on spending their money buying the Thunderbolts. So that's why this new Thunderbolts is actually now part of the Thunderbolts run. Even though it is numbered New Thunderbolts 1 all the way up to 18, those are really secretly Thunderbolts with the issues 82 to 99. But of course, we only know that because we've talked it through. I know that's a bit confusing, so for today I think it makes sense to draw this video to a close. As always, this map is going to be available on my website for you to download free of charge. If you want to download it or print it out to follow along, please do so. It covers 339 issues, so that's understandable. As always, please like, comment, subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter, where I tend to post a one-tweet daily review of whatever I've read that day. Given that I read, on average, around half a dozen comic issues a day, it's a great way to see what I'm up to and to get an idea for what future videos are in the pipeline for this channel. If you want to support the channel, it's easy. Head over to Amazon and pick up the first volume of my pro superhero novel, No Gods or Kings. It's a story about a world like our own, but where superhumans are a reality and how the world changes as a result. It's planned as a series of 9 novels, the first 4 are already out. They cost less than $1 each and are free if you have Kindle Unlimited. If you'd like to read a free excerpt of the first book, that can be found on the same website as this reading map, which is nogodsorkings.com. Link is in the description below. Until next time, everybody, stay classy.